Would have helped if I turned my camera back on. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to the Movie Battleground. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back for another great match that we have going on tonight. As has been the majority of matches that have happened thus far, it is the rookie taking on the vet in tonight's event, as we have returning player Henry Sanchez, one of the most enthusiastic motherfuckers I've ever met for this, coming back to the game to take on rookie Noah McCausland. And as with all the other matches thus far, I'm sure it is going to be a great treat. Every single person who's had to step to a vet has done a great job thus far. It really hasn't been as much of a slaughter as I thought it would be, and I'm curious to see how tonight goes. With that said, let's not kill any more time. Let's just get to the event here as I bring on the first competitor we'll speak to. Returning to the battleground with a refreshed record of 0-0, he is, as he calls himself, Henry Confidential, Henry Sanchez. How's it going, man?
Oh, pretty good. Can't wait to debate. Like you said, talk about it all the time, and it's all my love.
Absolutely. So the only question I have for you is just, how does it feel to be back in it, preparing for this match? Just how has it felt to be back in it, ready to go at it again?
I've judged a few debates, and it's one of those where mentally I've been prepared because I've just had the concept of hearing people debate back and forth, and I'm able to put myself in that position and think of things. So when I was able to prepare for these questions, it really put me in the mindset of, all right, I'm prepping for what I think judges need to hear, what I want to present to for myself and also against my opponent, and I'm excited. So this week was fun, and ready to do it today.
All right, absolutely. We'll be back on screen in just a second, brother, but thank you. And joining us on screen, making his Movie Battleground debut, he also has a nickname, except his is a little more steamy. He is Noah McCausland. How's it going, man?
Going pretty well. How are you doing, Aaron?
Good, man. Good. Welcome to the Movie Battleground. Welcome. This is something very different. I know recently you've been getting in and playing trivia with us. You've played TM Geek Trivia a couple of times already. This is your first time, I believe, in a debate scenario. So I'll ask you kind of a similar question in that, walking into this a little more blind with less experience, obviously, than your competitor, what was the thing that helped you most prepare for it?
Honestly, I can't say if there's anything that helped me most. What I did is went and reviewed as many of these movies as I could, whether it be watching the whole film again or watching snippets and stuff like that. I've never been really strong with debating. In high school, I maybe went to one day of debate club, and that was pretty much it. But I'm interested to incorporate the debate part of it with the movie aspect, and hopefully I can get better at debating even if I don't in as many matches. So.
All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and bring back in Henry and give you guys a quick refresher of the rules. So tonight, it is first to 3 points that wins. There will be a max of 5 debates. We'll talk about that fifth one if we need to go there. But for the first 4 debates, the questions were sent to the competitors ahead of time. They were given time to prep prior to recording. Both submitted their answers. Both are aware of what the other answered. So their arguments are as set as they could possibly get them for tonight. The way that each debate works as it goes through 4 stages. Each competitor will get a 1-minute opening where they can establish their argument. That will be followed up by 2 minutes of time on their own to speak to further flesh out their argument. Then we'll have a 4-minute open debate. That's where they chide back and forth, really go at it, and get as many points in as they can before we come to the 1-minute closing to wrap up the arguments. Once that is all done, I am not alone tonight. I am joined by 3 great judges in the back in the form of Jacob Barber, Jake Reese, and Haven Pendergast. They will join me on screen at that point to make the decision and decide who has won that battle. With that said, guys, do we have any questions or are we ready to go?
Ready to go.
Rock and roll.
All right. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into question number 1, which is honestly, at the time of recording, I forget what week I set this for, but either very soon or just recently, we had what is soon to be a cinematic classic in the form of Clifford the Big Red Dog release. And so that led me to asking the question, what is the best movie adapted from a children's property, originally a book or a show, of all time? Now, of course, because I had this with Clifford in mind, I was thinking of a very different type of answer. Both these gentlemen subverted me, and then if you have any questions, Scholastic books back them up. These do count as kids' books, even though they're definitely not Clifford the Big Red Dog. All right, so going into the first battle, Noah, as you were the person who was spun the favorite, you had the option of choosing whether you wanted to go first or second on which questions. You chose to go first on questions 2 and 4. And so, with that said, as I bring up the timer and disappear behind the scenes, Henry, you will be opening first. You have 1 minute on the clock to open. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All right, so when you think of the question, what is the best movie adaptation of a children's property, you not only have to take into account the actual movie itself, which is what we're debating, but you also have to take into account what it's adapted from. And my choice is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. When you think of a children's property, Harry Potter is the first thing that comes to mind. So when you pick a concept and a series that is an adaptation from a book, you want to pick the best one. And The Prisoner of Azkaban is clear and cut the best movie in the Harry Potter franchise because it has the best cinematography, it has the best acting up to the point in the series, it has the best story, it has the best writing, and everything that culminates in the story makes sense. There's no point in the story where it's cheap, it feels thin. There's layers in the movie, but they all come together by the end and they all make sense. And it's one of the things when you think of the Harry Potter franchise, Prisoner of Azkaban is the first one you think of because it has a lot of emotion, action, it's dark, but there's also layers that relate to the kids as well.
And that'll be time. Perfect on the dot. All right, Noah, you are up next to open. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I hate talking bad about my love of Harry Potter, so I hate going against this movie. But everything that Henry just mentioned, I believe How to Train Your Dragon does better. I believe the score fits the movie a lot more. I feel like the animation and the voice acting works perfectly with the movie and what it's trying to do, and the story and the different themes that all come together create this symphony on the screen, and it's glorious to watch. It makes you giddy, even if it's a kid movie. There are certain parts in this movie that like made me giggle and like made me laugh and made me get goosebumps just because I loved watching some of these scenes. So everything that Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban does, How to Train Your Dragon does better.
All right. So he cedes the remainder of his time. Just so you know, you can do that if you ever feel that you're finished. You can just cede it. That's absolutely fine. So with that, I will go ahead and move back to Henry. Your 2 minutes begins when you speak.
All right, so I want to start off by talking about the voice acting. You say that the voice acting is better in terms of the regular acting from Harry Potter. I have to disagree with that because when you think of the main character of Hiccup, unfortunately, he doesn't have a Scottish accent like his father, so you just kind of miss that connection, and that was a choice that they made, but it just lacks the depth that you would want from that character. You say the score is better, and sure, the score is fine, but when you think of the Harry Potter score, not only does it have the iconic Harry Potter score that is throughout the entire franchise, but it also has enough twists and turns and originality to it that is specifically Prisoner of Azkaban, and there's different themes throughout the movie that really hits home for Prisoner of Azkaban, where it's the epic moments, whether it's the dark moments, whether it's the light moments, and whether it's the happy moments. So it definitely covers all those bases. And when you think of stories and themes, I'll get more into specifics with that with your movie in How to Train Your Dragon, but like I said earlier, my movie has layers, but it all comes together. But unfortunately, the How to Train Your Dragon, the plot is very thin, and I'll get into specifics later. But there's just moments in that movie where you wish that there'd be more fleshed out and there's more depth. And the giggles and the goosebumps, that's one of those things. Sure, I'll give you that. If you really think that that's the case, that definitely comes on a case by case basis. So that may be just specific to you, and I just don't think that really covers a wide scope of the audience for this movie, because not only is the How to Train Your Dragon 1 not the best children adaptation of all time, it's not even the best in its own series, where the Harry Potter franchise is the best children adaptation, and specifically Prisoner of Azkaban. I'm good there.
All right. He concedes the rest of his time, which means we will shift over to Noah. 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You say the voice acting is not as good in How to Train Your Dragon because Hiccup doesn't have a Scottish accent. Well, you could say that for all the children that are being trained to kill a dragon. None of them have the Scottish accent. T.J. Miller in there doesn't have a Scottish accent, even though he doesn't sound T.J. Miller-esque. And as terms of story, you say it's very thin. I feel like the plot comes together really well because Hiccup is trying to prove to his father that yes, I'm a Viking. I can do this. Like he's trying to be something that he's not, and the movie is trying to tell you it's okay to be who you are and to proudly show it and not try to be someone else. So the progression of him trying to show that yes, he's a Viking in this movie, and then the strong feelings that he has against his culture is very moving to me, and it's a good theme to not hate your enemy just because you've been hating them your whole life and because your culture or your village tells you to hate them. The flying scene in this movie when Hiccup first flies Toothless, when he's going through the progressions of the cheat sheet and everything, and then when he finally decides to just get rid of it and just go with the moment, I feel like that flight scene is incredibly better than when Harry is on Buckbeak in the third Harry Potter movie. You just get a lot more emotion, and it's hard to diss John Williams for the score that he does in Harry Potter, but every moment, every emotional beat in How to Train Your Dragon is made a whole lot better just because of the score.
All right, and that will be time on the argument. All right, boys, so we are at the 4-minute open debate. The time will start when the first person speaks.
All right, so I want to start off your comparison to the Buckbeak flight, and I'm glad you mentioned that because I disagree. I think the scene where Harry rides Buckbeak adds more layers to it because not only does it give Harry a chance to shine and feel free, which throughout his entire life up to this point in his 13 years of existence, he's never had that moment of true freedom. So not only does it allow Harry to have that free moment, but it also provides some depth and layers to Buckbeak to show that he's not a sadistic animal, that he's not a crazy animal that needs to be caged. So when Draco messes with him later on and he scratches him, you truly believe and you're on Buckbeak's side that it's not his fault. So later on, like I said, this movie adds layers that everything comes together. So that's a perfect scene of later on when we're going to save Buckbeak, it's just truly important. So it's not just one of those throwaway scenes, and it's really important. So that's why I think it's better. And like you said, the John Williams score is fantastic.
You say Harry never felt free until that part of his life when he was riding Buckbeak. Well, he's been riding on brooms since the first year. So he's had the ability to fly and be able to really go anywhere he wants on the broom. So I don't know.
The difference with the broom though is it's part of a game, whereas in this one in Buckbeak it's truly for himself, and he's actually flying through nature. It's just not part of a game, so it definitely separates himself from other people, and he truly feels on top of the world. And speaking of your story, when you're talking about the father-son aspect of that, it's really thin because throughout it's super cliche because the dad doesn't like the son as much because he's not a Viking, so he kind of just throws him away, and then all of a sudden he's like, sure, you can get in there, and he starts training, and you don't have any dynamic between him and the other kids. So later on in the movie when they're on his side, there's no really build up and friendship and camaraderie between them that really shows of why they would look at Hiccup as the leader, other than the fact that he started doing well with the dragons. But once he was proven later that he was quote unquote cheating, you kind of don't really have that depth. So later on when Stoic is like, you're not my son, there's just a missing layer. It's just very, very cliche. Whereas everything in Harry Potter, there's true emotion, there's true story building, and in the Prisoner of Azkaban, it just builds up throughout the entire beginning. Even the very first scene at the Dursleys when you have Large Marge, not really Large Marge, but Aunt Marge, where he turns on, it just showcases just the evil and just how constantly Harry's just being talked down to. So when he has that moment of true anger, it really builds up who he can be deep down. And not only does that sprinkle breadcrumbs for this movie, but later on in the movie. So that's why this movie is a perfect storytelling aspect.
You say it's cliche between the father and the son. It may be the cliche, but I feel like this movie does it way better than most movies do. You say there's no real why the kids should have loyalty to Hiccup or like should have this all of a sudden camaraderie. I don't think they have it towards Hiccup. I think they have it towards Astrid, and Astrid trusts Hiccup to make the right decision because he's shown that he knows how to deal with dragons. So when it's time for them to actually befriend the dragons, Astrid trusts Hiccup, and I feel like the other kids go along with Astrid because they've seen her and how she is in the training ring and choose to trust her.
And I feel like that I feel like that's an empty layer of the movie. If you're going to have Hiccup as your main character, you should not have him be the through line. Whereas in The Prisoner of Azkaban, you have multiple scenes similar to like Sirius. We haven't even talked about Sirius yet. There's, like I said, breadcrumbs. This movie, the theme of this movie is breadcrumbs. It sprinkles out throughout. You have everything to go with Sirius that just shows him to be an evil guy, but there's enough talked about and there's enough hinted at throughout the movie that when you finally reveal that he's a good guy, you truly believe it. So you really have that real emotion, and that what's missing from Harry, where, like I said, in the father-son aspect, it's just like, oh, you're not good enough. Oh, finally you became a Viking. Sure, I'll make you my son. It's just really thin. It doesn't have that true emotion that you want, and no tears, and that's what you would want in that father-son moment.
All right, and that is going to be time on the 4-minute open round. I like that. It's a real discussion, but I like that you both have great points in there. So we will go to the final minute of this fight. Henry, you're up first to close. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Okay. All right. So what I want to kind of encapsulate is the fact that my movie has a lot of layers. It really plays off each other. There's no wasted plot line. There's no sense of cheat tricks, and there's no thin. The plot itself isn't thin, and the characters aren't thin. The entire movie flows beautifully, and it's the best script in the Harry Potter series, and it's has more depth than the How to Train Your Dragon movie. It's one of those things where it can tailor to kids, like the Boggart scene, where you have a lot of goofy, silly, high light moments. You have like I said, with the Buckbeak, that's a moment where it just felt like old Spielberg with the John Williams score really puts you in your emotions and your feels. It has a lot of dark, and there's a lot of dark themes. There's a lot of family related themes. There's a lot of themes that everything can relate to, regardless of your age. So it's one of those things where if you put it all together, not only is it the best Harry Potter movie, it's the best children adaptation of all time, because it really puts you in that perspective of no matter what point in your life, whether you're feeling down, whether you're feeling up, whether you're a younger child, whether you're an older child, whether you're in school, whether you're an adult, you can relate to this movie, and it's beautiful.
All right, and that is time on the dot. Noah, you have 1 minute to close out your argument. Your time starts once you begin speaking.
Depth doesn't always make a movie good. Sometimes it can be too complex. The storyline in How to Train Your Dragon is pretty simple. It's enemies turning into friends, and then them trying to show everyone else that, hey, this is okay, this is how it should be. The father-son relationship in there, I feel like, is truly believable and done well, because he wants his son to be this person he isn't, which a lot of people have gone through in their life. Their father wants them to be something that they're not, but it gives you that satisfaction of the father finally understanding, this is who you are. This is not who I want you to be. This is who you are, and I should be proud of you for that. The flying scene, and so many other scenes mixed with the score of the do-do-do-do-do. It makes every scene elevated in the way that John Williams does with his movies in Harry Potter. But I feel like the score does that way more better here. Way more better. It's not English, but
We don't need proper English. We just need discussion about films. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a very good fight. Good first debate on Noah's behalf. Welcome back, Henry. As we send you guys to the back, we will bring on our 3 judges, Jacob, Jake, and Haven. All right, guys. So I'll go ahead and give them a couple of seconds to finish up their thoughts before I start heading to them. Yeah, really, really good first fight. I like the chemistry between those two. It was like a very impassioned discussion. No anger, just all the defense you needed. And so with that, we're going to go in order here. As always, that these gentlemen entered the call. It's the most indivisive, that's the word, indivisive way of deciding how this works. So, Jacob, I will shoot to you first. In 30 seconds or less, tell me who won it for you and what sold that point.
So yeah, for me, I think Henry wins it. I wrote it down. This isn't why, but Large Marge. I think that was my favorite part. But I think he just brought up more points about how there's more layers to the story, and that kind of won it over for me. So,
all right. So the first vote does go to Henry. Jake, I move on to you. Who gets your vote and why?
I also have Henry here. He just made more concise points. Noah kind of slowed down a bit during his first 2 minutes, and then Henry kind of owned the 4-minute round. So, Henry.
All right. So with that, the first vote does go to Henry. Thank you so much to our judges. Mr. Blanche, I look forward to hearing from you next round, but for the moment, we will send you all back behind the scenes as I bring back in our competitors. And so with that, Henry does take the first point of this round, and we will go ahead and move on to question number 2. And a couple of weeks ago, we had a debate about this gentleman, and the debate was about underrated films of this director's filmography. And I think the hardest problem that both the fighters had with that question is most of his films are so good that it's hard to say one is underrated. So we decided, no, fuck it, let's just shoot for the other question then. What is the best Christopher Nolan movie? Most people would say pretty much all of his filmography is good. Maybe you have the odd one that you're not a huge fan of compared to the rest. But he is, generally speaking, a beloved director, and that is what we are going to get into here right now. So with that, as I bring back up your timer and disappear, Noah, you are up first on this one, so you have the 1-minute opening. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Interstellar is going to be the best Nolan film because in a lot of his other movies, he does twists and messes with your mind and everything, but along with this movie, as well as playing with time and playing with the visuals and everything like that, the emotion in this movie is really brought in and done well between the aging of his daughter, and he's seeing his daughter and his son age in real time, and him just breaking down. The weight of every choice in this movie, it really provides tension. It really provides a really good reason why these characters are doing what they're doing. Not to mention the visuals. The visuals in this movie are astounding. Even scientists said this is really a really accurate movie when it comes to gravity and physics and all that. And not to mention the score, because Hans Zimmer does it again.
All right. Absolutely. So that will be the end of your 1-minute opening, which means we will shift over to Mr. Sanchez. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All right, so when you think of the best of a director's filmography, you think of everything that culminates what they bring to the table. And Inception is the best movie made by Christopher Nolan because it has everything. You have action, you have the score, like you mentioned, you have the visuals, you have the emotion, which we'll get into that later because I feel like you're definitely overlooking that aspect. You have the tension. You also have just the depth and the layers and the quote-unquote twist and time, manipulation that you're talking about. So that's everything that encapsulates what Christopher Nolan does in his filmography. And it's one of those things where you have Leonardo DiCaprio at the helm, you have Elliot Page, you have Joseph Gordon-Levitt, you have Tom Hardy in probably his breakout role. You have so many elements to this movie that really brings together, and there's no real, obviously it goes through Leonardo DiCaprio with his performance and his storyline, but there's so many moments for the side characters to shine that it really feels like it's an ensemble, and it really feels like it's best Christopher Nolan movie.
All right, and that will be time. We will move back to Noah for the 2 minutes expansion. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You're talking about the emotion in this movie. So both main characters in these two movies are trying to get back to their kids and trying to see their children again. The fact with Inception is that we do not have time with him and his children together. You only see their faces once in the movie. I don't think that's nearly enough to provide the weight and the emotion and to get the audience desperate for him to get back to his kids. While Interstellar does that. You spend time with his kids on Earth. You spend time with especially Murph. You see the weight and the emotion of him leaving and how it affects not only Murph, because it affects her more, but affects the whole family. Because the other two pretty much know this is probably the last time we're going to see him. Michael Caine's character, the weight of his choices is crazy because he knows he has to make the best choice for humanity, even if that means leaving the rest of the world to die and sending these people up into space. The weight of their choices when they're deciding what planet to go to. They're trying not to take emotion into debate, but that's what they should have done in the first place. And that's what this movie is trying to say is emotion and love has a place. The visual of the black hole is something that scared me and astounded me the first time I saw this movie. Just the vast and massive size of this thing is incredible, and the score, the thing that pops in my head the most about the score is no one really thinks, oh yeah, I know the Inception score, like that's what I think about. It's the Interstellar score. It's that day one. It's that soft piano in the background, especially when there's no time for caution, when the space station is spinning and he's trying to lock it. That's one of the best scenes in the whole movie.
All right, and that'll be time on a solid 2 minutes. Henry, you are up on deck. Time starts when you speak.
So I like that you mentioned that we don't have any time with Dom's kids, and I feel like that's even more important because it's something that he's been getting back to, and that really just shows it. There's hints throughout the entire time where they're in the back of his mind, and even though we as an audience could get to see them, it's something that no matter what he's going through, whether he's in a very damaging moment, it's very tense, it's very scary, he has his kids in the front of his mind. And I love how you say that in Interstellar it prioritizes kids, but if you really think about it, it prioritizes Murph. It doesn't prioritize Tom, and it turns him into a jaded asshole. And it's one of those things that really affects it. He's actually not really a great father. He just prioritizes and favors his one kid. And then by the end of the movie, when he gets back to his kid, he just leaves to go and find Anne Hathaway's character. And it's one of those things where we did all that for essentially nothing. So the fact that you say that that's one of your main points of emotion, it kind of counters itself out by the end of the movie because at the end you really don't care. So yes, it has the one heartfelt scene, but by the end it really cancels itself out. Whereas in Inception, the entire time he's fighting to get back to his kids. He makes decisions. He's willing to not tell the other people in the crew that they're going multiple layers, and if they get killed, they're going to get stuck into limbo because he really needs to go to his kids. He's willing to essentially turn his back on and, betray his friends so he'd get to his kids. That's more important. So yes, you may be trying to save the world, but even though he's trying to save the world, he's not really giving his full love to all of his kids. You say that the score is better. A lot of people, when they think of Inception, they just think of the ball, but honestly, that's just from the trailers. There's so many themes in the score. At the very end, when you have Cillian Murphy's character, speaking of family, Cillian Murphy with his father, that dynamic is beautiful, and he's not even the main character. So the fact that this movie has multiple layers of emotion shows that this story is more, well-rounded. You have that scene at the end. You have all the action scenes. You have the scene where you find out what happened with Maul and Leo when it actually showcased it. Just the fact that it's just over us the entire time. So there's so much emotion more than just the kids in this movie.
And that is going to be time. All right, guys, we are on to the 4-minute open debate. The time will begin ticking when you first person speaks.
So I'm not saying that him being a good father has to make the emotion in the movie real. Yes, like he's not a great father to his son. He tries to stick up for his son in school. I honestly get it. He's not a good father to his son as much as it's Murph. It's clear that he favors Murph, but it still doesn't lessen the emotion in the movie, especially when he gets back from that water planet and he goes up, and the first thing he does is go to those video recordings, and he's seeing his children grow up, and he's laughing at first, and it slowly devolves into him crying and just weeping and sobbing, and no one can comprehend watching your own child grow up and become older than you.
So if we're going to compare, tears for tears, sure, that scene can bring tears. But like I said, the hotel scene when you reveal Maul's death, that brings the tears. But my movie, you have the emotion from dealing with his children more so. But more in terms of tense and action when he's fighting amongst his co heist people. He just has that intensity because he's trying to get to his kids. And when we're talking about like physics and stuff, sure, scientists might say that it looks decent, but when you think of recreating and the impact that one of these movies had on film as a whole, you think of Inception, you think of the mind bending. Without Inception, we wouldn't have Doctor Strange because of how they were able to recreate the world and bend its stuff. So not only is it influential within Nolan's filmography, but it also extends over to other filmmakers, and it really is more dynamic.
So the filmmaking part of it, like it being advanced in filmmaking, isn't what we're arguing about. We're arguing about what makes it a better movie. And the fact is that the logic and the emotion and the scenes, not the scenes, the score that work with the scenes to provide tension are done way better in Interstellar than in Inception. I don't think the score in Inception is memorable at all. Everyone can identify the Interstellar score. It's and it provides a whole lot more impact and a whole lot more tension and emotion into the movie itself.
So I'm not gonna go on too much because I disagree. I feel like that's subjective that you say that people don't connect to the Inception score, but they do with the Interstellar score. But I disagree with that. I feel like the Inception score is very memorable. Getting onto the story, because it's not just about emotion stuff. When you think of the best movie, you think of the most well-rounded movie and as a whole. So my movie has better action. You have the scenes in one of the countries, I don't know what it's called, when he's on the run and he first meets Tom Hardy's character. You have that chase and that shootout, and it's real tense. You have the scene when you first get into the real layers, when you get into Cillian Murphy's character, when the train comes in and explodes and it's raining. You have subtle moments like that when he's like, why couldn't you have peed on the plane, where the rain. So not only is that just a funny moment that adds depth and comedy to the movie, but it also affects the entire plot. And then you also have the fact that Cillian Murphy's character has been trained to go up against people who are trying to incept his mind, so that adds layers to it. And it's one of those things that they're like, we weren't prepared for this. He's like, yeah, but you rushed us. And you know why he rushed him? Because he really needs to get to his kids. And so not only does emotionally the fact that he's trying to get back to his kids showcase, but it also showcases that usually this guy is the best in this field, but it is not. He doesn't have the opportunity to be the best because he's brought down, and he brings down that layer with the kids, and he's not as prepared as you normally would be. So it really shows that in the movie.
Well, you can't argue that the film has better action because they're two different categories of movies. Yes, Inception is going to be an action thriller kind of sci-fi movie. Interstellar is more of a sci-fi movie than Inception, because it deals with space. There's no real fight except for the fight between Matt Damon's character and Matthew McConaughey. That's really the only action that you see. Everything else is just
and that'll be
build-up
time.
and plot.
All right, there you go. So that'll be the last word on the open debate. However, Noah, you do get to continue as you close first. So 1 minute on the clock for you to wrap it up. Time starts when you begin speaking.
I feel like the weight in Interstellar of every person's choice is a whole lot carries a whole lot of more weight than in Inception. Yes, he's trying to get back to his kids. He's the only person that's affected by this, though. He's the reason why he's doing this is so he can get back to his kids. There's not really a lot of weight for the other characters of why they're doing this, and every choice that they make, every choice Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway make, they have to make not only for themselves but for the future of the human race, and that really makes the movie watchable, in my opinion. And the Hans Zimmer, I feel like, really outdoes his score in Inception, in Interstellar, and with the organ coming in at very tense moments. Again, I'll say it again because it's a really great moment, but when he's trying to lock back onto the space station after it's spinning, it's a really tense moment, and it's only amplified by his score.
And that will be time. All right, Henry, you are wrapping this up. 1 minute on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So just a reminder, the question is, what is the best Christopher Nolan movie? And when you think of Christopher Nolan, you think of time, you think of action, you think of emotion, and you think of just putting your mind to the test. And Inception does that tenfold better than Interstellar and any other movie in his filmography. Like I said, you have the action throughout all the shootouts. You have the emotion of getting to his kids. You have the emotion with Cillian Murphy and his father. You have the dynamic of the entire crew. Not only is Leonardo DiCaprio at the helm, you have Cillian Murphy, who's a main part of the movie. You have Elliot Page trying to figure out what they're going to do, and why they're going to be important. You have Joseph Gordon-Levitt dealing with his things, and he has weight. You have Tom Hardy. You have Yusuf. You have all these characters that have moments of shine. So yes, the story may be about Dom and his ultimate goal to get back to his kids, but every character in the movie has a moment to shine. So it's not definitely one-sided. In Anne Hathaway's character, the only time that she does anything part of the plot is selfish, but at the end of the day, Matthew McConaughey goes back to you have Michael Caine. His decisions were selfish. If you would have just spoke the truth, you definitely could have probably figured this out even better.
And that is time. All right, once again, guys, another really good fight. I'm going to go ahead and drop the timer off screen and send both our competitors to the back for just the moment while they wait, while I bring on our three judges and they go ahead and wrap up their decisions. Once again, in terms of whenever we have kind of questions with facts, I try to bring them up or correct them. Not a lot here. These guys did a really great job of understanding their film. But to give them some credit, I'm pretty sure the only character who was actually said by their character name was Yusuf, who was played by actor Dileep Rao. I want to give him just a little bit of credit. He had a hell of a year. He did Avatar and Inception back-to-back, and no one's ever heard of him since. So What a year to be an actor. Anyways, with that said, I'm going to go ahead and head to our judges. Mr. Tato, in 30 seconds or less, tell me who won it for you and what sold you.
Henry again, just more concise with his time and hitting the arguments.
All right. Ladon Blanche, I head down to you, sir. Thank you for being here. And who won this one for you and what sold it?
I'm going to have to give this one to Noah. I think he came in a little harder. You know, he really put the family value over. You know, he put the score over. You know, just the scenes. You know, scene. But you know what he said was when they were in that country. I don't know what country it was. I kind of was like, I can't really win an argument when you know, say, hey, they were over there. I don't know where, but hey, man, trust me, that was good. Yeah, and I think Noah learned from the first round to be a little more aggressive in this round, so I'm gonna give it to Noah.
All right, so that means we do move on to Mr. Barber. Who gets your vote and why?
I gotta go Henry on this one. I think he just brought up more aspects of the movie. With, like, there was more to the movie with the action and the emotion. So that's what sold it for me.
All right. So with that, thank you, gentlemen, once again for being with us. I will send you to the back till the next time as I bring back on our competitor. So with that, the score does go 2-0 up to Henry, but we are not done yet as we get to, honestly, one of the more interesting questions in this round. Over the course of Battleground, a lot of film genres, film franchises, film years, actors, directors, all that will be discussed, but not many people would ever want to go down this road. So here it is. Question number 3. What is the best foreign language film that was released in the 2000s? I would say, especially as we inch closer and closer, obviously with the pinnacle being last year, with Parasite being the first foreign language film to win Best Picture, international foreign language, I should say. I don't know if the artist technically counts as non-foreign language, but I believe it was co-produced by America. The point in being, it's the first time a real true one has won Best Picture, and that really puts it over the top. But the 2000s had a lot of great options. So which one was it? And for this question, we do go back to Henry, who is up first. So as I bring back your timer and disappear, your 1 minute will start when you begin speaking.
All right. So when you think of the question, what is the best foreign language film? You have to think about it from multiple angles. You have to think of the film as a whole, but you have to also think of, when you think of a best foreign language film, you have to think of how it is accessible to the outside person. And my pick is Old Boy. And the reason I chose this film is not only does it have a really great story, both from our main character, but also from, you know, towards the end when we find out what happens. He has the side character of Midu, where, you know, you figure out slowly what everything's going on with her, but the main story based around Daisu and just everything that he went through and the layers and the growth that he develops throughout the movie, and the question of why am I in prison for 15 years and why am I going through this? And the reason that I feel like this is one of the better stories of all time, let alone from the 2000s and let alone specifically from a best foreign language film, is because that's relatable. If you're locked up for 15 years, you want to know why, and you want to mix your curiosity and your detective work with your vengeance, and this movie does it beautifully.
All right, so that will be the opening from Henry. Noah, we shoot over to you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Audrey Tautou is an absolute gem and just the most adorable actress that you see in a movie ever. I know that's kind of an objective thing, but you really understand her character and her intentions and her motivations, and as well as you understand other people. And this movie is about getting to understand people, even though they're complete strangers in the movie, they're actors. But to me, this is about understanding other people and getting to know the relationships between people. And this movie does it absolutely wonderfully. With Audrey Tautou, her character going around trying to find out this person is in these photographs that she keeps finding. And the relationship between the clerk, one of the store managers, and one of the people that comes in for coffee. Just the relationships in the movie are.
And that is time. All right, so I'm going to say it just because you did cut out right at the very start. On my end, at least, I don't know if they heard you perfectly, but the film is Amelie. I did flash it up on screen as well. just in case the audio does cut in the final video. The movie given was Amelie. So we have Amelie versus Old Boy. Couldn't get much more different than that. With that said, Henry, you have 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So similar right now, when you think of a foreign language director, before you got Bong Joon-ho, you were talking about Chan-wook Park, and that is because specifically of Old Boy and the impact that it set on the 2000s for a revenge film, for I don't want to say coming of age film, but when you really span 15 years, it kind of is that. And then you also have a father-daughter dynamic, because at the beginning of the movie, he is kidnapped right before his daughter's birthday. So not only is he missing his daughter, similar to what we were just talking about in the last movie, he wants to know why that he's going through this. And just the levels in the movie that it builds up, it's just one of those things where I guess apparently I love layers and dynamics in movies, because this one has a lot of depth, whereas in Amelie, it's one of those where it's very simplistic in its story. Like you said, she finds a picture, she's trying to find someone, but there's nothing really about the movie that has a true connection. It has a sense of wonder and has a sense of adventure, but in terms of a romance, at no point in the entire movie do you really feel that. If you're not rooting for the character, which honestly you might not be given the quirky nature of the filmmaking, you aren't really that satisfied by the end of the movie. So yes, sure, if you're just being objective and you're looking at the screen, you're like, oh, they got together and it's cute, then sure, you give it that. But there's nothing about the writing and the actual filmmaking aspect where you truly feel it. Whereas in Old Boy, you feel everything. You feel the vengeance, you feel that sense of wonder, and you feel the sense of backstabbing, because there's multiple points in the movie that honestly I don't want to spoil too much of the movie, because it's so fantastic and it's just one of the best movies of all time for a reason, but you have to go in blind. So I'm going to do a fantastic job of explaining why this movie is better without even giving too many spoilers, and I feel like that's going to be a fun fact. But you have the villain in the movie that isn't revealed until halfway, but once the points of their reasoning is revealed, it is fantastic, and it really hits deep, not only for our main character but also for the villain.
And that is time. All right, Noah, 2 minutes on the clock for you. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So you say Amelie is simple, but that's exactly what this movie is trying to do. This movie is trying to explore the simplicity of life, and to be able to see the beauty in everything, and to appreciate the small, intimate, personal relationships that you have in your life. You're saying that you're not really rooting for the characters. I disagree. You spend so much time with the person that she's interested in, following around as she's leaving clues, and you're desperately wanting them to meet up and to get together, and it doesn't happen, and it doesn't happen, and you keep getting denied. When it finally happens, you feel that sense of relief. You feel that, oh, they finally did it. You get a different story with each character in this movie, and it's the love between Amelie and Nemo. It may not be like most conventional, but little pranks that they have with each other that she plays, and the path that she tries to set for him to follow, it just makes it like this playful, charming adventure, and it's hard not to love the chemistry that the people have on screen. It's hard not to love Audrey Tautou and her portrayal of Amelie, and how she sees the world and how she sees life. And it's been nominated for so many awards. The cinematography is absolutely gorgeous. The color palette is gorgeous in this movie. The music is innovative, and it's wonderful to listen to, and it helps to show the simplicity with making it still be beautiful. And I still have 13 seconds, so I'll try to get some stuff in. I believe this movie is really underrated because it's considered simple.
All right, a concise point to end on there. And with that, we will move on to our 4-minute open debate. The time starts when the first person speaks.
And Noah, I like you, but unfortunately you just shot yourself in the foot with that last point, saying that this movie is underrated, because we're talking about what is the best foreign language film of the 2000s, and if for a movie to be underrated, it therefore can't be the best. And the reason that Old Boy is the best is when you think of Old Boy, you think of the hallway scene, and it's one of those top-notch action scenes of all time that really just is so memorable. And you don't even have to see the movie, but you know that scene because there's the impact that this movie had on cinema, and the fact that it's a foreign language film, and that scene translated over to the Western country. It's just beautiful. And like I said, the score in this movie is fantastic as well. It really has a sense of action. It has a sense of upbeatness. It also has a sense of downness. There's multiple layers to the score. Whereas in Amelie, it's just upbeat and simple. And like you said, it is in fact simple as a story. And it's one thing, if you're not specifically rooting for the character, sure, you might be rooting for the characters and you might be on their side. But if you go into that movie not rooting for them, you're not really going to have that ultimate payoff by the end. Whereas an Old Boy, even if you're not rooting for your character, because honestly, he's not even the greatest guy, but you can just put yourself in that shoes of being trapped for 15 years and being kidnapped and wanting to find out why and what you're going through. So even if you don't specifically root for your character, you can relate to that story. Whereas in your movie, if you're not rooting for those characters, you don't care because of how simple it is.
Underrated can absolutely mean the best. Means that not the majority of the people don't see it as the best, or it slipped from their mind as being one of the best movies. You don't need to have drama. You don't need to have tension to make a movie the best. And this movie has so many little different plots and adorable little things that go on. Like she writes love letters to her caretaker. She'll steal her dad's garden. All these further say that she lives in this fantastical world, and we kind of see it through her eyes. The kindness that she's trying to spread between people, the relationship she's trying to set up between people. It just creates this movie again, simple, but it's so much fun to watch, and these characters work very well together.
So when you think of Old Boy and you think of its plot, it's not simple like your movie, but it's also not confusing. It makes a lot of sense. Even there's multiple layers. Everything comes together by the end. You have Daisu's kidnapping. You have his 15 years of being in prison. You have the fact that he's training himself to fight. So that makes that hallway scene even more impactful once you see the backstory within the film, because he taught himself just from watching TV and practicing punching a wall and everything he's going through. The multiple times that he tried to kill himself, because at that point in 15 years, you don't even want to live anymore. And then once he gets released, finding out why he gets released, and if you've seen the movie, you understand the significance of 15 years. Like I said, I'm not going to go into spoilers because I truly think that if you haven't seen this movie, you need to watch it. It's very important because of how great the story is. But when you think of 15 years and the importance of the entire story, it just makes so much sense. And then when you have Wu Jin as the villain, his character has so many layers to himself, because it's one of those, when you think of the best villains of all time, not only do you fear them, but you also can understand their point of view. And when you actually get the backstory of the reasoning why he trapped Daisu for 15 years, you truly feel for him, and you're not rooting for him, but you can understand, and you can really it just adds so much layers to the movie. So by the end, it's so beautiful and masterful. And like I said, the score just culminates it together, and there's so many layers that are beautiful. And Amelie's just so simple. The acting's fine. The color palette's actually kind of weird. It's one of those things where if you're not into like that orange, it just doesn't really hit. There's nothing really memorable about the scene. There's cute little moments, but nothing that stands out to be called the best foreign language movie of the 2000s.
It's not trying to make this huge mark with every scene has to make a big difference. This movie is about escaping mundane life and seeing the beauty in life, and it actually doesn't. The setting's in Paris, but it doesn't make it.
All right, thank you. That is fine. That's on me. The couple seconds there, but I was a few seconds delayed in starting it, so it is all what it is. That's going to be time on the clock for you guys. As we move on to our closing, Henry, you're up first. 1 minute. Time starts when you begin speaking.
All right. So once again, the question is the best foreign language film of the 2000s. You want it to be not only the best movie, but you want it to be memorable. You want it to be accessible. This is a movie that, despite the dark themes and the dark elements of the movie, when you watch it, there's multiple layers that you can relate to as an audience member from various cultures. When you think of the hallway scene, it stands out even in of itself. But when you think of Amelie, there's no one specific scene that you can point out that it's like, oh yeah, that's from that movie X, Y, and Z. And it doesn't really have much influence on other films. Oldboy, that hallway fight alone influenced Daredevil, which we got in the TV series of that hallway fight. So it's one of those things impactful. You relate to the character, you understand the character, but you also doesn't love him. He's a flawed character, but you're still rooting for him and you're still following him. The villain, there's layers to the villain. You obviously don't want to root for the villain because the villain is a villain. He's doing terrible things, but also you truly understand why they're doing it. And the dynamic between Daisu and Midu is just so heartbreaking, and that's all I'll say about it, just because it truly is worth not knowing. But this movie is the best foreign language film of the 2000s for all those reasons.
All right, and with that, Noah, we will head over to you for the last minute of this round. Time starts when you begin speaking, man.
This movie does it perfectly encapsulates celebrating life's small pleasures and enjoying the little things in life and the intimate things in life. I was trying to say earlier, this movie is set in Paris, but it doesn't overtly say, "Oh yeah, we're in Paris," like so many other movies do, because it's more focused on the relationship between the characters instead of the actual setting. Sorry, it offers poetic and an escapist vision of everyday life. The color palette, yeah, it's this weird orangey thing, but it works for the movie and what it's trying to do. The little quirks of Amelie just make her just a more fun and quirky character to watch, and you root for her even if you don't know, like you don't have a lot of screen time with the guy that she's trying to get, but the chase that she's trying to have, that she's trying to introvertly seduce him, is just.
And that is time.
Great time to watch.
All right. Great job, guys. That is going to be time on that fight. As I come back in, I will drop you guys to the back as I go ahead and bring on our 3 judges. All right. And unless you guys need another minute, we'll go ahead and get started. Haven, you are up first, my man. Who won it for you and what sold you on it?
I'm gonna have to give this one to Henry. He just made a lot of better points. Both of these guys had a chance to really nail why the movie's better, by like awards, things like that. Nobody really brought anything up like that. Yeah, Henry brought up how we got the Daredevil fight scene from Old Boy. Never brought up the American American remake of Old Boy sucked, and that's why he could have do some of that in there in the 4-minute round, but he didn't. So I'm just gonna keep it short and sweet. I'll just say Henry, took it from me.
All right, so the first vote does go to Henry. Jacob, I go to you in 30 seconds or less. Tell me who won it for you and what sold you.
I'm actually going to go Noah this time. I think he countered some arguments pretty well this time, and so that's what did it for me.
All right, which means we go to Mr. Jake. In 30 seconds or less, tell me who sold you and what they sold you on.
As much as I hate to deny the people another question, this one is also Henry. It was super close, it was neck and neck going into that last minute, and Henry just made a better point in that last minute, so I gave him that last point.
All right. So, judges, thank you so much as I go ahead and send you to the back, because with that, and your winner in a knockout score of 3-0, it is Henry Confidential Sanchez. Henry, how are you feeling, man? I'll go ahead and cut back to the wide shot. Production-wise, these are being recorded a little out of order of how they're going up, just for how I built the schedule and how the matches came together. So let's see how well this statement holds up. At the time of recording, you are the first knockout winner of the league. I didn't want to say that because I know it'll boost your ego, but I feel like I have to give you the due diligence. So how are you feeling, man?
I had a lot of fun. We were just talking about it behind the scenes that my opponent, no, he wasn't as confident after the fact, but he did a really good job, and I'm hoping he doesn't hang his head low. He did a good job. He made me sweat, and as someone who has a lot of experience debating, just in general, let alone in a an actual format, I feel like I had the edge on him. So I think Haven mentioned in his judging of the second question, he got better as time progressed, and it's one of those things you'll just figure out how to go. You'll formulate your arguments. You'll learn what to bring up to go to talk about with the judges and all that stuff. So Noah, hang your head up, and I can't wait to see you again. And I had some fun. debating is something I love to do. I love talking movies in general, and I, love to lie about movies. Interstellar's on my top 40, and I made it seem like a movie was gutter trash, and that's the fun of this.
Well, speaking of something that'll go gutter trash, let's talk about your next match. As you step up into the 1-0 bracket of our 2 tournaments that are happening. And honestly, looking at all the matches we have, this might be the knockout, drag-out fight because of everyone we've seen that looks like they could be a potential winner. You're going against one of them in round number 1 of this tournament, as you will be playing Mr. Grant Gregory. Who viewers of the show will remember back in our very first week took out his own rookie in Sean Hunter in a match that went to sudden death. So he had a very tough fight. We promised him some heart pills and a vacation break, but he will be coming back to play you. What are your thoughts on your opponent, who I know you know very well?
It's actually funny you say the vacation break. If Facebook ever lets him off his vacation that he's currently on right now, that that debate will happen. But he's got a lot to handle on there, so hopefully he can prepare. No, but I don't know if I said it publicly or privately, but you know that I wanted Grant off the rip, and Noah was a nice guy, and I'm glad I liked him during this match, but he was in my way, and Grant's one of like the 3 competitors in this tournament that I wanted most, so I'm glad I get him right away. It's going to be a battle, but I know what I can use against him, and I'm ready, and I definitely will be ready.
I believe that straight up. All right, Henry. Well, thanks so much, man. Congratulations. And I will send you to the back as I bring up the unfortunate runner-up tonight, Noah McCausland. And again, man, the first thing I have to say to you is, and I've said it to every competitor, the random seeding of this matchups set a lot of people in a bad place because we have rookies who are brand new into this against people with not just who have played before, but with lots of experience. I mean, Henry did this so often, I could shove him in the middle of a movie theater and tell him debate that guy, and he'd probably go do it just for fun. So with that said, man, how are you feeling after your first match, aside from the toughness of a loss?
This was definitely a learning experience for me. This is something that I can take away from. I can take lessons away from myself, like how to be better about debating movies. Quicker on the answer of what movies I want, because with the exception of Interstellar, I definitely feel like he had the better movies. So it was hard to debate that. Even though like his Interstellar was in his top 40, like he still managed to make it seem like it was gutter trash, like he said. So I need to just figure out how to do that, and this is a learning experience, basically.
Absolutely. And again, I think Haven really did say it best. You could see over the course of the 3 rounds that you were growing into it more and more with each round. And again, as the way the setup works, I hated the idea of bringing people in, especially because we had a lot of rookies sign up. And if they lost, potentially just kind of sending them to the back for a few months. So you will have a match coming up at a very not too soon. I'm not going to hit you up next week, but you'll have a bit of a break, and then you'll get your second match in the first round of the 0-1 tournament, and you'll be playing the person who falls victim between TMG's Jacob West or competitor in Battleground, Jordan Owens. So that'll be a match that'll happen. That'll be one of our later matches that will go up of our first 16, and the person who falls victim in that match will be your next opponent. What do you know about either of these gentlemen, if anything? And if you know something, who would you prefer to play?
I know Papa West from TMG Geek. I'm not really too familiar with the other guy, so it's kind of hard to take my pick. But I feel like Jacob would be a fun person to go against, just because the energy that he brings to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if Jacob could, he would quite literally reach through the screen and give you a hug now, and he's not even in the call. I think if I shot him a text, he would probably find a way, because that's just who he is. But yeah, man, Noah, look, I hate saying it, because as much as it makes the other person feel better, I know it can only make the other competitor feel worse, but don't take shame in the score. Henry was always going to be a difficult opponent. You grew into the game. You did well. And all I can wish you is the best of luck on your next go-around, because I think we will see a better fighter come out. And if I do say so myself, this isn't a spoiler because this will have happened a long time ago by the time this match comes out. If your TM Geek performances show anything, it shows that when you lose, you become very motivated. So
Yes.
I don't look forward to whoever plays you next. Thank you again, man. We'll see you next time.
All right, see ya.
All right, guys, and that is it. Another great match of Battleground. As it says, if there's anything I hate doing, it's stroking Henry's ego. But as the score says, he did win 3-0. He is the first knockout victor of Movie Battleground, at least at the time of recording. This will just look really badly dated if one of our other matches ends up in a knockout before this. But with that said, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed. Please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Definitely subscribe because this is a fun week of matches. Not only do we have this match going up on a special Wednesday upload, but tomorrow night we have our first ever double header event. We have two TMG Battleground vets taking each other on in the form of Mahdi Raymond taking on Matt Beer. And then following it up in the main event of that doubleheader, we have the first ever Movie Battleground champion, Evan DeGraff, making a return to the Battleground, taking on, as the wheel decided, his own rookie in Mr. Steve Mesa. So that will be, again, just another... Man, I feel bad for these rookies. It's just a rough time all around. I take only some responsibility. I don't program the wheel. I just hit the spin button and unfortunately deliver the news. But with that said, guys, please be sure to rate, comment, and subscribe. Check out everything else that we have here on TMG and tune into the matches tomorrow. My name is Aaron Knoll. This has been Movie Battleground, and we will see you next time. Take care.